United States is often imagined as a place that's always connected, endless highways, cities that never sleep, and schedules that must be followed. But far from those centers, there are islands where time does not bend to people. There, ferries can vanish from the schedule without explanation, weather becomes the highest authority, and a small community replaces the entire outside world. This isn't a list of places to visit. It's a story about home, about people who learn to live with distance, silence, and choices that make the world feel incredibly far away, yet strangely close at the same time. First, we arrive at San Juan Island, the kind of place that doesn't feel remote at first, at least until you actually live there. Geographically, the island sits between mainland Washington and Canada's Vancouver Island, surrounded by the cold waters of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Ferries from Anacortes run regularly, carrying cars, supplies, and tourists. Around 8,000 people live on San Juan Island, spread across a small town, open farmland, and narrow roads that end at rocky beaches. Orca whales frequently appear in the surrounding waters, not as a tourist attraction, but as part of everyday life. On paper, access to the island is easy. In reality, weather, fog, and long ferry lines often disrupt plans without warning. To reach Washington Island, you must cross the Porte des Morts, Death's Door, a narrow strait in Lake Michigan that has made sailors cautious since the 19th century. Opposing currents, sudden fog, and rapidly changing weather turned these waters into a graveyard for dozens of old wooden ships. Even today, the ferry ride from Northport often feels like a rite of passage, leaving the mainland and entering an island world. About 700 people live here year-round. Many are descendants of Icelandic settlers who arrived in the late 1800s, making Washington Island the oldest surviving Icelandic community in the United States. Lavender fields in the center of the island have become a modern symbol, calm, fragrant, and quietly contrasting with the violent history of the surrounding waters. Beaver Island sits almost exactly in the middle of Lake Michigan, far from the noise of the mainland. From the air, it looks peaceful. Forests, long shorelines, and the small waterfront village of St. James. But that calm hides one of the strangest chapters in 19th century American history. In the 1850s, the island became the center of a Mormon community led by James Jesse Strang, a charismatic religious figure who openly crowned himself King Strang. He ruled like a monarch, complete with his own laws, loyal followers, and open conflict with non-Mormon residents. This island kingdom ended abruptly when Strang was shot by former followers in 1856, and the community quickly collapsed. Today, about 600 people live on Beaver Island year-round, mostly descendants of Irish settlers who arrived after Strang's era ended. Access to the island depends on ferries and small planes from Charlevoix, connections that are reliable until the lake decides otherwise. If Beaver Island feels isolated by the vastness of Lake Michigan, Tangier Island is separated by something more subtle: shallow water and time. This small island sits in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, seeming to float far from mainland Virginia, even though the distance on a map isn't extreme. What makes Tangier especially striking is its distinct dialect. The local accent sounds old-fashioned, often compared to 17th century English. a result of centuries of isolation among fishing families who rarely married outside the island. Around 400 people live here, nearly all connected to the blue crab industry and life on the water. Access to Tangier is only by passenger boat or small plane. But unlike many other islands, its greatest threat isn't weather or distance. Erosion and rising sea levels are slowly consuming the land, making Tangier Island not just remote, but fragile and possibly temporary. Off the coast of Maryland lies Smith Island, the state's only inhabited island with no bridge connection at all. The shallow waters of the Chesapeake Bay form a natural barrier, making access possible only by small boat from Crisfield. Roughly 200 people live across small villages like Ewell and Tylerton. The community is deeply religious, close-knit, and highly interdependent. Life revolves around church, fishing, and the rhythm of the tides. Many families have lived here for generations, creating strong social bonds that outsiders rarely penetrate. Smith Island is widely known for one sweet thing: Smith Island cake, an 8 to 10 layer cake with thin layers and chocolate frosting. Originally made by fishermen's wives, it's now the official dessert of the state of Maryland. After the quiet, inward-looking world of Smith Island, Daufuskie Island offers a form of isolation that feels warmer and more colorful. The island sits between Hilton Head Island and the Savannah River, yet it feels far removed from both tourist hubs. There's no bridge connecting it to the mainland. The only way in is by ferry or private boat from Hilton Head or Savannah, winding through tidal rivers and salt marshes. A few hundred people live here, many of them descendants of the Gullah Geechee community, descendants of enslaved Africans who lived in isolation on the coastal islands of the Carolinas for centuries. Simple homes, small churches, and old cemeteries stand as living markers of a culture that has endured, quietly preserved by distance. From the salt marshes of South Carolina, the island's story moves far north to the edge of the cold Atlantic Ocean. Monhegan Island sits about 19 kilometers off the coast of Maine, a granite outcrop constantly battered by wind and waves. For more than a century, this tiny island has drawn artists. Painters like Rockwell Kent and Edward Hopper once captured its dramatic cliffs and unique light. Around 60 to 70 people live in Monhegan year-round. There are no paved roads, no streetlights, and almost no motor vehicles. Life moves on foot, by handcart, and by the rhythm of nature. Access to Monhegan is only by boat from small harbors like Port Clyde and is highly weather-dependent. Thick fog and rough seas can stop travel for days at a time. If Monhegan feels remote and artistic, Matinicus Island feels remote and blunt. It is the farthest inhabited island from Maine's mainland, about 32 kilometers out in the Atlantic. Roughly 80 people live on Matinicus year-round, nearly all connected to the lobster fishing industry. The community is known for being self-reliant, tough, and highly protective of its internal affairs. Outsiders are welcomed as guests, not decision-makers. A long history of conflict with mainland authorities over schools, electricity, and public services has shaped a strong, we-handle-it-ourselves mindset that still defines the island today. Access to Matinicus is limited to small planes or boats that are entirely dependent on the weather. Here, Isolation isn't romantic, it's practical and intentional. Guam feels like a paradox. The island has an international airport, shopping centers, and major military bases. Yet geographically, it is one of the most isolated U.S. territories in the world. Located in the Western Pacific, Guam is closer to the Philippines and Japan than to Hawaii, let alone the continental United States. Its distance from California exceeds 9,000 kilometers. Around 170,000 people live on Guam, where the indigenous Chamorro culture remains strong alongside American and Asian influences. Language, food, and traditions reflect a long history shaped by Spanish colonization, Japanese occupation, and U.S. administration. Access to Guam is almost entirely by air. There are no ferries connecting it to other U.S. regions. Planes are the only practical link to the outside world. From Guam, which feels distant yet alive, Adak Island feels closer to emptiness itself. The island sits at the far western end of the Aleutian chain, closer to Russia than to Anchorage. The wind almost never stops here, so strong that Adak is nicknamed the birthplace of the winds. Fog, rain, and gray skies are the default setting, not the exception. During the Cold War, Adak was a major military base with thousands of personnel. When the military left in the 1990s, it abandoned nearly everything. Hundreds of homes, schools, hangars, even fast food restaurants. Today, only about 100 people live among those empty buildings, creating the eerie feeling of a post-apocalyptic ghost town that is somehow still breathing. On St. Paul Island, the loudest sounds aren't engines or human voices, but wings beating and the ocean exhaling. This small island rises from the middle of the Bering Sea like a point of total isolation, hundreds of miles from mainland Alaska, often wrapped in fog, and far removed from the logic of the modern world. In certain seasons, its beaches are crowded with northern fur seals, while its cliffs become home to millions of seabirds. Because of this, St. Paul is often called the Galapagos of the North. Within this wild landscape, about 400 people live year-round, most of them from the Aleut Unangan community. Life here exists alongside nature, not in control of it. One of the most striking buildings is the Saints Peter and Paul Russian Orthodox Church, a 19th century remnant from the era when Alaska was under Russian rule, its colorful icons standing out against the gray sky. The only way to reach St. Paul is by small plane from mainland Alaska, and weather often has the final say. St. George Island is home to only about 100 residents, many of whom can trace their family lines back several generations. Life revolves around basic needs and the rhythms of nature. The island sits in the middle of the Bering Sea, about 60 kilometers from St. Paul Island, with steep cliffs that host one of the largest seabird colonies in the Pribilof Islands. Most notable is the red-legged kittiwake, a rare seabird whose global breeding population is concentrated almost entirely on St. George and a few Russian islands. During certain seasons, the noise from these bird colonies overwhelms any human activity. Access to St. George is limited to small aircraft that aren't always available, and when the weather turns bad, supplies can be delayed for days. Taʻū feels like the far edge of the South Pacific, missed by tourist routes altogether. This volcanic island is part of American Samoa, a U.S. territory that rarely appears on travel maps. Steep green cliffs drop straight into deep blue water, and small villages follow the curve of the coastline. The distance is real, flights are limited, and getting here usually requires multiple connections, enough to keep Taʻū quiet and overlooked. About 600 people live on the island, within a strong Samoan social structure where family ties and church life sit at the center of the community. What makes Taʻū stand out isn't just its isolation, but how it adapts. In 2016, the island transitioned almost entirely to solar power, using solar panels and battery systems to replace expensive, unreliable diesel generators. Niʻihau lies only about 27 kilometers from Kauai, but that distance is misleading. Known as the Forbidden Island, Niʻihau has been privately owned by the Robinson family since 1864 and remains closed to the public. There are no ferries, no commercial airport, and almost no official way for outsiders to enter without rare, special permission. Around 100 people live on Niʻihau, nearly all native Hawaiians. What makes the island truly unique is cultural continuity. The Hawaiian language is used daily, not symbolically. Life here continues without modern electricity, without running water, and without paved roads. Rainwater is collected, and daily rhythms follow nature, not digital clocks. Though geographically close to modern Hawaii, Niʻihau chooses separation. Its isolation is deliberate, a cultural stronghold holding firm against the tides of change. Little Diomede Island feels like the last point before the world ends. This rocky island stands in the middle of the Bering Strait, between the United States and Russia. From its shore, residents can clearly see Big Diomede Island in Russia, only about 3.8 kilometers away. But that distance deceives. The islands are divided by the international dateline, creating a time difference of nearly 21 hours. Tomorrow is visible, but unreachable. Around 80 to 100 Inupiat people live in a single village called Diomede. Homes cling to steep slopes because there is almost no flatland. There is no harbor and no runway. The only access is by helicopter, and only when weather allows. In the past, winter sea ice was sometimes used as a landing strip for small planes, a practice now increasingly rare as ice becomes unreliable. On Little Diomede, isolation is not a metaphor. It is real, cold, and absolute.